Thank you very much, and welcome to our 13th Center for Studying Disability Policy Forum. As you have just heard, we have some guests out in the field who are participating via webinar, but for those of you in Washington, we're really pleased to have such nice weather today. Everyone thinks it's nice here except the people who've come up from Florida, who inform me that it's 80 degrees down there. So we'll have to talk with them later about what that's like. Our topic today is the Youth Transition Demonstration Project, delivering employment-focused services and waivers to youth with disabilities. It presents preliminary results from the Youth Transition Demonstration, or as we fondly call it, YTD, which is funded by the Social Security Administration. We're very pleased to have a number of representatives of Social Security: Richard Balkus, Robert Weathers, Jeff Hemmeter, and Joyanne Cobb. They are in the back of the room, and if you have any questions of them after the seminar, I'm sure they'll be available to talk with you. Would you please raise your hand so that people in the room can see who you are? Thank you, and we welcome you. We are also pleased to have representatives from the 3 current YTD sites. So why don't people from the 3 YTD sites please raise their hands as well? We hope that you will take an opportunity to speak with them after the forum. The transition to adulthood for youth with disabilities can be really difficult, particularly for those who receive SSI, SSDI, or other disability program benefits. Besides the issues facing all transition-age youth, and some of us are still young enough to remember what that was like, young people with disabilities face a host of special challenges, health problems, social isolation, particular service needs, and lack of access to support. These challenges complicate their planning for future education and work and often lead to poor educational and employment outcomes, long-term dependency, and a lifetime of poverty. Policy improvements for youth with disabilities are crucial for several reasons. First, the costs of low adult employment have a devastating effect on the quality of life for these youth and their families, including long-term dependency and lifelong poverty. The lifetime economic advantage of work over dependency is particularly high for youth because they have many years ahead of them when they potentially could work. Second, employment outcomes for young adults with disabilities are deteriorating. In fact, from 1989 to 2000, which were both peak business cycle years, the employment rate for persons ages 25 to 34 with self-reported limitations actually fell from 57 to 41%. Third, a rising number of individuals rely on income from SSI and SSDI, and the cost to federal and state government continues to grow. On average, people who enter SSI before age 18 remain on the rolls for 27 years, receiving a stream of benefits worth more than $100,000 per youth. Yet, among all disability beneficiaries, youth are a particularly promising target population for policy reform. Youth with disabilities may eagerly consider employment because most of their friends are also pursuing employment. They are making a transition to work, and these youth have not been fully entrenched in dependency. Our first speaker this morning will be Thomas Fraker, a senior fellow at Mathematica. He has led the implementation and evaluation of the YTD project since its inception. He will provide an overview of the YTD evaluation and the implementation components. Next, we will hear from Taylor Runner, the Program Manager for the Human Resources Development Foundation, or HRDF, our YTD site in West Virginia. He will describe implementation challenges and successes. Arif Mamoun, a senior researcher here at Mathematica, will present selected findings on services from the process and impact analysis for the initial 3 YTD sites. Our final speaker, Kelly Crane, who is also a senior research associate but from Transcend, will then describe technical assistance provided to the original 3 sites and how we sharpen the focus on employment for the remaining sites. Tom?
Thank you, Bonnie. I think it's especially appropriate that I be speaking here today because I just this weekend joined the ranks of the disabled on the ski slopes in Vermont. The YTD evaluation is testing the efficacy of employment-focused transition services and waivers of certain SSA disability program rules for youth with disabilities. It's a 9-year study involving over 5,000 teenagers and young adults. I'm going to provide an introduction to the evaluation as background for the 3 speakers who will follow me. This slide shows the objectives of the evaluation. It will is designing, implementing, and rigorously evaluating demonstration projects that are intended to improve transition outcomes, especially employment outcomes for youth with disabilities. It's also intended to reduce the dependency of those youth on supplemental security income and Social Security disability insurance. This slide provides an overview of the evaluation. The target population is SSI or SSDI beneficiaries ages 14 through 25, or youth who are at high risk of becoming beneficiaries in the future. The intervention consists of intensive transition services focused on employment and enhanced SSA work incentives. The evaluation design consists of random assignment of eligible youth to treatment or control groups. The random assignment demonstration evaluation is being conducted in 6 sites across the country. The intervention is based on Guideposts for Success, which is a publication of the National Collaborative on Workforce and Disability for Youth. The key components of the intervention are individualized work-based experiences, such as job site visits, internships, subsidized jobs, and most importantly, paid competitive employment. Among the other intervention components are services to promote youth empowerment, such as person-centered planning for youth, family involvement and support, system linkages to services provided by other programs or other organizations, and SSA waivers and benefits counseling to help the youth and their parents understand those waivers. The benefits counseling also helps them understand not only the waivers, but all the SSA disability program rules and the rules of other programs as well. There are 5 SSA waivers. I'm not going to go into them all. I'm going to focus on one just to give you a flavor for these waivers, which enhance existing work incentives. I'm going to focus on the earned income exclusion under the SSI program. Now, the standard earned income exclusion provides for a $1 reduction in SSI benefits for every $2 in earnings. That translates into a 50% implicit tax rate on earnings. Under YTD, SSA has provided a waiver which makes the earned income exclusion more attractive. Instead of a 1-for-2 reduction in benefits, under YTD, for every $4 that a youth earns, benefits are reduced by $1. So that's a 25% implicit tax rate on earnings instead of the standard 50%. And thus it provides an additional incentive for youth to work. And there are 4 other waivers as well. As I mentioned, there are 6 random assignment demonstration sites. These were selected in 3 cohorts, selected in 2 cohorts. In each cohort, there were 3 sites. So let's first turn to the 3 early sites. In these sites, services began in 2006 or 2007, and the services ended in 2009 or 2010. So at these sites, the YTD project has been completed. And these early sites are located in the Bronx County of New York, otherwise known as the Bronx Borough of New York City. We refer to this project, this site, as the CUNY site because the YTD program there was operated by the City University of New York. The second of our 3 early sites was located in 4 counties in Colorado, and the third early site was located in Erie County, New York, which is where Buffalo is. The 3 later sites, at these sites, services all began in the spring of 2008, and services are scheduled to end in the winter of 2012. And I'm pleased to say that, well, Bonnie noted it, but representatives from all 3 of these sites are in the audience with us today. And those sites are located in Miami-Dade County, Florida, Montgomery County, Maryland, and 19 counties in West Virginia. This slide describes the random assignment of youth in the evaluation. At each site, approximately 880 youth were recruited into the evaluation. This entailed conducting outreach to the youth, but then conducting a baseline interview with each youth and obtaining written informed consent from the youth, or if the youth was a minor, from a parent, for the youth to participate in the evaluation. Once the baseline survey was obtained and written informed consent, the youth was considered to be enrolled in the evaluation. Now, in 5 of the 6 sites, Mathematica conducted the recruitment of youth into the evaluation, and we reached out to youth who were on the SSA disability benefit rolls. SSA provided that information to us. But in the 6th site, the one in Montgomery County, Maryland, Mathematica did not do the recruiting. Rather, the YTD project itself recruited youth into the evaluation. This was through cooperation with Montgomery County Public Schools. The project reached out to youth who have been determined to have severe emotional disturbances, and they recruited them into the evaluation. Now, once youth were enrolled in the evaluation, Mathematica randomly assigned them to a treatment group or a control group. The treatment group consisted of approximately 480 youth in each site, and the control group, 400 youth in each site, approximately. Once Mathematica had randomly assigned a youth to the treatment group, we passed the name, telephone number, address, the contact information for that youth onto the project. And it was up to the project staff to reach out to that youth and enroll him or her in project services. Now, under the terms of the MOU that each project had with Mathematica, the projects were obliged to enroll in services at least 400 of the 480 treatment group youth, and each of the 6 projects achieved that goal. There are 2 especially notable features of the YTD intervention and evaluation that I want to highlight for you. First, Transcend, which is a nonprofit organization based in Rockville, Maryland, is providing the projects with intensive technical assistance, or TA, on both the design of their interventions, but more importantly, on the day-to-day operation of their interventions. Transcend is in there really on a day-to-day intensive basis helping these projects. The second feature of the evaluation that I want to highlight is that all 6 of the projects are using the same web-based management information system, which is Efforts to Outcomes, better known as ETO. Project line staff, the folks who are actually delivering the services, enter data into ETO on the service hours and employment outcomes for each of the youth they serve, and they enter these data frequently on a periodic basis. The project managers then use the data to help them administer the projects, and the evaluation and TA staff use the ETO data to assess program implementation and to inform TA. So the ETO data are really critical to both the management of the projects and to the evaluation and the technical assistance. This slide gives the schedule for reports on the YTD evaluation. There will be a series of 6 site-specific interim reports on project implementation and impacts 1 year after random assignment. These will be available to the public in the winter of 2011, that is very shortly, for the first 3 sites, and in the fall of 2012 for the last 3 sites. These reports will be posted as they become available on the SSA website, and a link to the reports on the SSA website will also be posted on the website of the Center for Studying Disability Policy. There will also be a comprehensive final report covering all 6 of the projects, and that is scheduled for release in the fall of 2014. Taylor Runner will now tell you about the YTD project in West Virginia.
Thank you, Tom. Hello, my name is Taylor Runner. I'm with the West Virginia Youth Works program out of Morgantown, West Virginia. I work for a company called Human Resource Development Foundation. And before I get started, I think I'd just like to acknowledge the other 2 programs that are represented with this project. I think I could speak for them that we're all very, very privileged to be part of a very important project, and hopefully the impacts that we show through our efforts are far-reaching down the road. I'd like to talk a little bit about our model, and while it may be very similar to other programs, there are some uniquenesses of our program. I'd start with our mission statement, which kind of came up with engaging youth and their families to use services and supports as tools for greater independence and self-sufficiency. I think that's probably pretty self-explanatory. As with all the YTD programs that have operated, there are some certain elements that Tom had mentioned that all of us have adhered to. We enrolled and served approximately 400 youth in our program, but what might be a little different with the Youth Works program, we've run 2 separate phases. We enrolled about 200 people the first time for 18 months. We're currently in a second phase of serving 200 people in our program. Our major collaborator is the West Virginia University Center for Excellence in Disabilities, otherwise known as the WVU-CED or CED. They provide our benefits counseling. They're also the statewide WIPA program, which really was a great collaboration for us because they really offer some excellent history of working with SSA recipients and benefits counseling in general. So they got on board with us when we started this project and still in charge of our benefits counseling. As I mentioned, the overview of our services, importantly, after we got the random assignments from Mathematica, we enrolled people in the program. We've completed all those enrollments to this point. We're very actively receiving or actively offering services right now in phase 2. Important piece I mentioned earlier, in both phases, all of the people in the program receive a minimum of 18 months of service. Some more, but we offer at least a minimum of 18 months of service. Again, I mentioned we had 2 separate phases. Now, those of you who are familiar with West Virginia, it's very rural, very spread out. When we designed the concept of this, we had to find areas that offered the random assignment numbers that SSA and Mathematica wanted. So we tried to distinctly put our program into 2 regions. One would be the northern part of the state and the southern part. 19 counties, that's a lot of area to cover, but we've done it. There's a map of West Virginia. There's the southern region, which would probably have maybe two cities that you would call cities in it, really, Charleston and Huntington. Beckley would be a town to most of you. Northern region up there, we're based out of with our direct administrative offices of Montague County, the top one there. That's where Morgantown is, where the University of West Virginia is. But as you can see, we're spread out. We have a very solid group of employees in all these different areas, and I thought it would be important to give people a sense of how spread out this program is. As with most ITD programs, I think we all kind of came up with different methods of our service delivery and interventions which were set forth. Obviously, when we get the treatments, we would enroll people into services. Concurrently with that, one of the other aspects of our program that I think is a little different, we're not facility-based per se. We go into people's homes initially to enroll the people. We meet with the families in their home. Sometimes it's done in a public setting, but most of the time in the home. After we've met with the individual, signed information, we offer benefits counseling through the CUB. They typically go into the home with our specialists. We begin assessments, which would be person-centered assessments, and so on and so forth, different assessment activities. We put together a person-centered plan of action, and then obviously we have a job developer that then gets engaged with the youth and their families to begin some sort of job development or work experience activity, so forth. Benefits counseling is offered throughout, particularly if they go to work. That becomes a big piece of the puzzle to get those people benefits counseling, get their checks in the SSA. Well, obviously job coaching is just needed and follow-up. Some of our project highlights. One of the things that HRDF has known for over the years is employment and training opportunity. We've been a private nonprofit in West Virginia for nearly 40 years, actually more than 40 years. So we had a direct work with workforce agencies, but we didn't have a distinct, strong connection with local disability groups, so that really got enhanced with this program. But the feature of this YPD program, which I think really separates it, is providing this individualized, person-centered career planning, working with a variety of employers in an area, and being as isolated and geographically challenged as West Virginia, you have to really go out and meet with employers a lot, smaller employers, little mom-and-pop operations, take the work to the people, so to speak. One of the other things about our program is that we offer a variety of work experiences, which I'll mention here briefly, but these work experiences, hopefully, we've seen progress to more competitive jobs down the road. Continuing with project highlights, we offer on-the-job training through job coaching and support if necessary. The benefits counseling is provided through the SSA benefits management. And some other unique parts of our program, and I'm sure other ITD programs offer this, but I thought we'd list a few of the career readiness activities we offer. Disability Mentoring Day, which is an annual event that's held. We engage our youth into that. Town Hall Job Shadow Day, worksite tours, those are big. Taking a little bit of a model connection from, I think, the CUNY program, which was some of the other sites early on, they had a real strong family participation piece to their program. We have what are known as career connection events, where we bring families, youth together, have a party, bowling, some sort of social activity, get the families together, and also have a benefits counseling session at those events. So we have those, I think we've had them twice in each cycle and then twice in the sex cycle. So those have been really important. Mock interviews, health fairs, things like that. Those are all important. So the YouthWorks program, how did we manage 19 counties around the state of West Virginia? Well, we have 2 program managers, myself and an individual that works out in the Charleston area. We employ customized employment specialists. We have 7 of those full-time, 1 part-time. We have in our company an 80% FTE or full-time equivalent individual. We have job developers, job coaches, and the WVCD offers 2 benefits counselors. Then we have obviously administrative folks within our company that help out. Some of the statistics that the program gains from ETO, as Tom mentioned, that we've utilized this as a very helpful program management tool. It's really, I think, been enhanced to the second phase of the program. Just a couple of numbers here that jump out. We've seen an increase, obviously, of the service hours, gaining employment activity. Once you get past the case management and the intake and some of the enrollment activities, we've seen a direct increase in our employment service hours. And so you can see there's a lower number of case management still necessary, but the hope is that employment services, employment outcomes really get to be the big bulk of service time as the program winds itself down. Some of the other key component outcomes that they're looking for in ETO, and I'm happy to see this number has changed. When we originally did the script for this presentation, we were at 39%. We set a goal of 42% of people that we've enrolled would have a competitive job at one time or another. That would be 42% of people enrolled. That number now is at 41% from 39 just at the end of February, and that a few days ago. And that, I think that 156 is up to 162 or 3 or something like that. And that's the number of people that have had a competitive job. It's actually, some people have had multiple jobs, or they came in with a job and got another job with their new program. They only got counted once in that particular ETO number. So as Tom mentioned, the ETO tool, I think, as we've seen, is becoming a really effective way to gauge how staff are doing, how the program is doing. But if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't originally designed to be a management tool, but it's ended up being an effective one. And that, certainly, I guess, we're going to use it a lot for research. So we certainly can look at the outcomes of the overall program and test monitor individual staff efforts. So we have some unique challenges in West Virginia. All ITP programs have, and the whole field has challenges. A very rural area. To give you an idea, these 19 counties covers about 9,000 square miles of now we don't serve that many square miles of area, but just gives you an idea. In West Virginia, not totally unique of that area, but there is a perception, and some of it is real, cultural dependence on SSI. It is real. It is profound there. So we try to cut through that as much as possible. Economic conditions, that's not just unique to West Virginia, but we have challenges there. Maintaining a focus on paid employment, that's we've had people that get jobs and then leave them because they didn't want to have to juggle their money anymore for some reason. They had the rent due, but it messed up their check that they used to have come in a certain amount. So there is a challenge. One thing we didn't mention there on the list is transportation in West Virginia is very sporadic in terms of public transportation. For the job for someone, you can't get into the job. Or they don't have a car in the family. These are reality checks at times. And we become creative in offering different support to get people to the jobs. So we really, as a program, I think all YT programs are getting to the point where we're really at a point where competitive employment and pushing the envelope with families and their youth to get their mindset to working is good. And so that's a challenge at times. So we work a lot with tracking reports that Transgen helps us with in the UTO reports. So just keeping actively engaged with participants, that's a challenge. doors now, and we've had a lot of support assistance from our TA team, and so that's an ongoing effort of challenging the work in the field for us. So we have had a number of successes. We'll toot our horn a little bit here. We achieved and exceeded our enrollment goal. We actually enrolled 704 youth in the program. I think that came up to about 84%, so then they would pick or two up from there. We are on track to meet and surpass this internal goal we put as 32% of paid employment. And as you run a couple of numbers here that might seem a little confusing, I'll try to be clear on them, but approximately 200 placements have really occurred. One of the things that doesn't show up in some of these percentages is we were pretty active in the summer youth program. Those of you familiar with the ARA money that came out, there was a lot of movement with youth getting work in summer youth. That's considered subsidized work, so it really didn't pop up into certain ETO numbers, but there were a number of people that worked 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks in summer youth, which was competitive, which would actually pay taxes and SSA. But those are some of the different kinds of placements on the job training, self-employment, and competitive placements. So the work experience, as I mentioned earlier, we've actually placed about 120 people. We actually do job shadowing. We do a thing called OET, or Occupational Exploration Training. That's kind of a tryout job, where we try to place people in a job. They don't like it, maybe place them somewhere else. We pay a stipend out of that, which is out of our program budget. They get $3 an hour for each of those little jobs they try out. Those are usually time limited, but we like to think they'll move on from that experience. They'll do an OJT or some other competitive job. An OJT, as you know, is on-the-job training, but what we offer in our program is we offer the employer a percentage of their wages up to a certain point. So it's an incentive for an employer to buy into the program, but the employer has to hire first, which is the big basis of that program. And certainly other settings where you can go into other businesses and that sort of thing. So that's my name up there. And I'd like to invite Amanda O'Donnell. We have a number of successes with all YTD programs, but I thought we could conclude. Amanda O'Donnell's been with us with the program since the pilot began, and she's our lead employment specialist, and she's going to briefly describe one of our success stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about a young man who enrolled in the program in July of 2010. He has actively been receiving services for about 8 months now, and he's been able to do some different activities that I just wanted to highlight for you all. This young man, his name is DJ, and he did enroll in July. At the time I met him, he was between his junior and senior year in high school, and he was actually one of my last enrollments. I actually had to track him down and sell the program, and as it turned out, his cousin was already one of my participants. So they said, "Oh, you're that Amanda. Well, come on in." So he enrolled in the program, and just about a week before I met the family, they had just established with the Division of Rehab Services counselor in our area, who is also Amanda, so we have to keep ourselves clear there. DJ is a Social Security, he's SSI beneficiary, and he's got a very good, well-involved family. His mom would do anything for him, and she's been a really good support through the months that I've been working with him. She acts as his guardian and conservator, so he's got to be a big part of all the activities that he participates in. DJ's primary diagnosis is autism. One of the main barriers that I've run into with DJ is that he's not able to communicate as well as some of the other people in my program. He does use augmentative communication devices sometimes. Right now, the school has provided that, and so he doesn't bring it home, which makes it a little limiting to go into the home and communicate with him, but he is kind of coming out of his shell. He'll use words sporadically with me now that I visit the home more often. Like I said, when I met them, they had just established this Division of Rehab Services, and I said, well, let's all get together and sit down at the table and make sure we're all working on a common goal. So we all sat down, and what the DRS counselor had offered the family was the idea of going into a community-based assessment in the area and learning about what DJ excels in, maybe what kind of work duties he would be interested in completing. And this was going to be an unpaid 90-hour work experience for DJ. As Taylor just mentioned, we have the occupational exploration and training agreements that we can offer. So I brought to the table that opportunity. It is stipend paid, and it does not count as earned income, so it's kind of a trial to going to work and getting that comfort zone. But the important part is DJ receives a paycheck every 2 weeks. He doesn't have to submit it to Social Security, but he gets to take it to the bank and deposit it and get that feeling of work is good and there's payoff to this. So through the summer of 2010, DJ started his work experience. He worked 3 days a week while he was out of school. And now that he's back in school, he still works 3 days a week. He's still from his classroom Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And his mother drives him. The workplace is about 45 minutes away, and she is dedicated. She drives him there every time. She sits in the parking lot and waits. So I always know I can find Mom and catch up because she'll be in the parking lot. So, his community-based assessment was set for 90 hours, so I wrote the agreement for him to be paid the stipend pay for those 90 hours. During his time there, he accessed some janitorial work that he did not care for, some food service work that he also did not care for, and then he was introduced to a shredding contract. It is a statewide shredding contract. There's a van that drives all over West Virginia and collects items, and it's all done on site in Morgantown. He enjoys this so much. His favorite part is sorting. You have to put all the different papers into the color bins and then process it through the shredding machines, and he just has excelled there. He grins the whole time. He's had to get security clearances. He wears a name tag that he's very proud of, and Mom is just beside herself as well. So he stayed there for most of his 90 hours, and he was very comfortable. When he finished his 90 hours, we came to the table again, and the employer said, well, we're really pleased with DJ, and we'd like to offer him employment. So at this point, he's moved from the OET, like Taylor had mentioned. That is our hope with our work experiences, is that you gain the skills and you move into competitively paid placements. And DJ is someone who has accomplished that, and he's now making minimum wage, and he's still in school. The idea is that when he graduates, he will continue to work and maybe even boost his hours a little bit. Mom has some other interests for work that are a little closer to home, so we will explore that. But at this point, she's very pleased with the placement, as is DJ. Let's see what else. Just a few other notable items with DJ. He is very involved in the system. He goes to physical therapy, occupational skills training. He goes to aquatic therapy. He's going constantly, and so is Mom. The whole family is. And just some of the things that we've been able to get him involved with since July, obviously he receives benefits counseling from the WVU CED, and now that he is getting earned income, minimum wage, he has revisited with the benefits counselor. He's actually accessing the student earned income exclusion right now, and I don't believe will surpass the limit for that. So he'll access that waiver until he graduates. And once he's out of school, he'll be using the general earned income exclusion that Tom detailed earlier. So he's accessing those waivers and keeping in contact with our benefits counselor. Something else that the CED offers is an assistive technology lab. You can go there, you can try out different technological devices. You can borrow them. They have a lending library. That was one of the first activities that I got DJ involved in. And at this point, I believe next week he's going for an evaluation, and they're going to get him an iPad. So he's very excited about that. He can communicate even more. And the other thing that he was involved in that was really neat was something called a Batizi class. It's Build It, Keep It, Share It. And this was held by the Division of Rehab Services and funded by them. And it's a class where you come together, you learn about computers, and then you actually build a laptop that you take home with you and keep. So DJ was very excited about that, because at that point, his communication devices were all at school. Now he's got something at home. And you get a certificate at the end of that program, you build a resume, and he's updated his resume from a paid work experience to paid employment, and that was very exciting for him. And now he's using his laptop to complete his senior portfolio that he'll present to his classmates. Last week we met at his workplace and took pictures of him with his name tag so he could add all those things to his portfolio. And I should mention that he also does receive Title 19 waiver services. So that was something that was really helpful from the outset. And that's think that's about it. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Okay, next I'd like to introduce Elif Mamoun from Mathematica.
Thank you, Taylor. Good afternoon. My name is Arif Mamoun, and I'll be presenting the one-year findings on the use of employment-focused services in YTD projects. As you heard from Tom and Taylor, employment-promoting services are a core component of the YTD initiative. And these services include career counseling, job shadowing, and benefit counseling and things like that. But these services are intended to help youth participating in YTD projects to make them as economically self-sufficient as possible as they transition into adulthood. The findings I'll be presenting today reflect results from the implementation and impact analysis that we did on the use of services based on data from ETO, from baseline and 12-month follow-up surveys that the evaluation team conducted, and also based on data from SSA's administrative records. The findings I'll be presenting today are for 3 early YTD projects that Tom mentioned. The projects are the YTD project in Colorado, run by the Colorado Wind Partners, the YTD project in the Erie County, New York, run by Erie One Board of Cooperative Educational Services, and the YTD project in Bronx, New York, run by the City University of New York. We commonly refer to the project as the CUNY project. Before we turn to the findings from our analysis, I would like to give you a brief background on each of these projects. The projects differed somewhat in terms of the age of the youth who participated in these projects. In the Colorado project, the project served youth aged between 14 to 25 years old. In the Erie project, they served youth between 16 to 25, and in the CUNY project, they served youth between 14 to 19 years old. In the CUNY project, all participants were in school, whereas in the other 2 projects, Colorado and Erie, youth were about half of them were in school, while others were out of school. The projects also differed in terms of their approach to service delivery. In Erie and CUNY, the focus of the projects were individualized work-based experience in terms of their service delivery model. In Colorado, they had an employment-focused case management approach in their service delivery. So with that brief background, let's turn to the use of employment services. This slide focuses on employment services delivered by YTD projects. These included career counseling, support for resume writing and job searches, job shadowing, apprenticeship or internships, and also benefit counseling. So it's a mix of job placement type of services along with other softer but still individualized employment support. Based on ETO data, we found that on average, a participant in the Colorado project received about 5 hours of employment services. In Erie, youth received about 9 hours of employment services on average, and in CUNY, it was 27 hours. The next slide looks at the use of non-employment services, which included life skills training, education services, help with accommodations, referrals to health services, transportation services, and general case management. Again, looking at ETO data, we found that on average, in the Colorado project, youth received about 2 hours of non-employment services. In Erie, it was 9 hours, and in CUNY, 22 hours of non-employment services. I mean, as Tom mentioned, and also Taylor mentioned this, and Amanda mentioned this too in her presentation, an important component of the YTD initiative has been the modification of selected SSA program rules for project participants. These modifications or waivers have been designed to encourage and reward the efforts of youth to begin working, increase their earnings, or continue their education. So in addition to the services that I mentioned in the previous two slides, youth participating in these projects also had the opportunity to benefit from these waivers, which included the earned income exclusion, student earned income exclusion, Section 201 waiver, the plan for achieving self-support or PASS, and individual development accounts. Tom explained what the earned income exclusion entailed. I'll just briefly remind you all again that under the standard program rules, youth benefits were reduced by $1 for every $2 of earnings. Under the waiver, youth earnings were reduced by $1 for every $4 of earnings. And based on data from SSA's administrative records, we found that EIE, or the earned income exclusion, was the most used work incentive in Colorado and Erie, whereas in CUNY, it was the Section 201 waiver. The Section 201 waiver involved allowing participants to continue to receive benefits regardless of the outcome of the continuing disability review or the age 18 medical redetermination. Let us now turn to the estimated impacts of the YTD projects on the use of services. I should add that these impacts are based on data from the 12-month follow-up survey, and in estimating these impacts, we compared the mean for the treatment group with the mean for the control group, adjusting for their baseline characteristics using regression adjustments. I should at this point acknowledge that all of these data from the 12-month survey and the baseline survey are the outcomes of tremendous effort by our interviewers in the survey team. This is a direct result of their effort, which allowed us to achieve almost 90% response rate in the 12-month follow-up survey. So we really appreciate that. Let me just introduce you to the framework of this slide, and then I'll talk about the specific findings here. As you can see, there are 6 columns, 2 for each of the 3 projects. The first of these 2 columns show the treatment group mean for each project, and the second column shows the estimated impact. And the rows are showing different outcomes for use of services. As you can see, all 3 projects led to increased use of employment promoting services. In Colorado, there was a statistically significant 12.4 percentage point impact on use of employment services. In Erie, it was 13.7 percentage point. In CUNY, it was 16.2 percentage point. This overall impact on the use of employment promoting services is a product of use of specific types of employment promoting services, which are career counseling and resume writing and so on. As you can see, the projects differed in the pattern of impact on these specific types of services. In Erie and CUNY, there was positive impact on all 4 types of employment-related services, with resume writing and job search and benefits counseling showing the largest impact of these specific types of services. In Colorado, however, only career counseling and benefit counseling use increased significantly, and that finding is consistent with Colorado's emphasis on case management. Finally, these projects, 2 of these projects, Colorado and Erie, led to significant positive impact on use of non-employment services. In CUNY, there was no impact. Now, turning to impacts on paid employment experience, we see that only 1 of the 3 YTD projects led to a statistically significant increase in paid employment experience. This slide shows both employment in paid job as well as employment in any that is paid or unpaid job. And as you can see, in Colorado and Erie, there were no statistically significant impact. Only in CUNY, we see that there was about a 9 percentage point increase in paid employment experiences. Additional analysis shows that the impact in CUNY on paid employment experience is concentrated in summer months, which suggests that the impact is actually reflecting the project's effort to get participating youth engaged with the summer youth employment program that was supported by the city. So in other words, the impact on paid employment experience is very much a part of the services that were delivered by the CUNY project. To summarize, the findings from our one-year implementation and impact findings, the YTD projects offered employment and non-employment services. All three projects led to increased use of employment services, and only one of the three YTD projects increased youth paid employment experience. With that, let me turn it over to Kelly Crane.
Home stretch, guys. Hi, my name is Kelly Crane, and I'll be discussing the role of technical assistance in the YTD evaluation. As Bonnie mentioned in the introduction, I am with Transcend, and it is Transcend who provides this technical assistance for the project. By way of background, Transcend is a nonprofit organization, and we're dedicated to improving the employment outcomes of persons with disabilities. We have a belief in our organization that there's a job out there for anyone who wants one, regardless of their disability or need for accommodation. We've been part of the evaluation since the beginning. We assisted in the design of the intervention, and Tom talked about those intervention components in his remarks. But again, they're individualized work experiences, family involvement, youth empowerment, system linkages, and then, of course, there's benefits planning. We also provide ongoing technical assistance to our sites on implementing these intervention components. Our technical assistance is customized to meet the individual and unique needs of all of our sites. We have several approaches. We have field-based technical assistance, a cross-site technical assistance or peer-to-peer, and then just in-time technical assistance. When we look at our field-based TA, early on in the project, we went out to all of our sites. We did face-to-face trainings and workshops with them, and really the purpose of these trainings and workshops was to give them the tools and strategies to implement best practices around job development and job placement. As our sites evolved, we moved to more one-on-one technical assistance with individual staff members, and this allowed us to troubleshoot with them, also to help sharpen the techniques and strategies they use. We actually go out and meet with employers and youth and families with staff members. This allows us to model best practices, but also observe what they're doing, and then we come back and brainstorm with them on how they might do things differently. When we look at our peer-to-peer or cross-site TA, we hold frequent webinars. These webinars can be content-related or even process-related. We also host monthly conference calls. Each month we get all the staff on a call, particularly line staff. These calls have an identified topic related to job development and job placement, and it's an opportunity for us to come together to talk about what's working and what's not working for them. We talk about lessons learned, and again, it's just a real opportunity for our sites to come together and dialogue with one another. We also have our annual face-to-face meeting. We have one immediately following this forum. But this is just another opportunity for our sites to get together, for us to give them strategies on job development and job placement, but for them to dialogue and really network with one another. Finally, we provide just-in-time technical assistance. Our team has made themselves accessible to the site staff. They know that they can contact us at any time with any question. Typically, we meet with them to do case reviews. We talk about challenges they might be having with a particular YTD enrollee, and we brainstorm on how we can move them to paid employment. We also hold bi-weekly calls for our benefits specialists out on the sites. We connect them with our experts. And again, it's just another opportunity for them to come and bring the questions they are currently having around the YTD waivers or just general benefits planning. Our technical assistance has always focused on direct job placement rather than the more traditional case management, and we have seen some success with this approach. However, the findings from the early 3 sites have shown that we do need to sharpen our focus on paid employment. So with the 3 later sites, we put several strategies in place. First of all, we've worked with all the sites to set a goal for paid employment or an internal benchmark. We worked very closely with our sites to make sure that this goal was reasonable for them, but also one that would hopefully show significance. You heard Taylor say that they have a goal of 42%. That 42% or approximately 161 of their YTD enrollees will achieve paid employment. We've also seen our sites translate these goals down to the individual staff level. At one of our sites, they've gone as far to say to each one of their staff members that they need to make 1 paid placement per month between now and the end of the project to meet their internal goal. We've also been working with sites and using ETO reports to monitor their progress towards these goals. These reports are generated on a monthly basis. It allows us to see the big picture of what's happening in that site, but it also lets us look at individual efforts. For instance, how much time is an individual staff member focusing on employment-related activities? And as TA providers, this is very important for us because it allows us to target our TA or triage any issues that these sites are having. We've also worked very closely with our sites to develop a management structure that supports these internal goals. For instance, in one site, we worked with them to identify each one of their staff members' strengths, and then we divided their caseload according to those strengths, and that allows them, again, to better meet their employment targets. Going along with that, we've worked with staff to really articulate the roles and responsibilities of various staff members. For instance, what does an employment specialist do compared to a job developer, and how do they work together to achieve those paid employment outcomes? And then finally, we had been delivering training and technical assistance directly to the line staff. And we have our project management in this room here, and we couldn't have done this without them because they really allowed us to have the access with the line staff so that we could work with them and provide this TA. So we're moving into our last year of services, and in this last year of services, we want to keep the focus on paid employment, but more importantly, work with our sites so that they can meet their internal goals. So in the next year, we have several things that we'll be working with the sites on. First of all, we are going to be partnering with them to improve data entry and reporting in ETO. Taylor mentioned it. I think it's fair to say that early on in the project, it was really the evaluation team that was using this ETO system. That system has really evolved and helped to inform our technical assistance. These reports allow us to see trends across our sites, within our sites, and with individual staff members. And as a result, again, our TA has been more informed and more targeted. So over the next year, we will be working with our sites to make sure that they're entering data correctly into the EPO system, that they're using the reports to help monitor the progress towards their internal goals around paid employment. And then, of course, we'll be using them to inform our technical assistance that we provide across sites, within the site, and then also to individual staff members. We'll also be working with staff in refining their employment goals. You heard from Taylor a couple of days ago. They met 41% of their 42% internal benchmark around paid employment. Our Miami site has already met their benchmark that they set a couple years ago. So our team will be working with them to revise these goals, again, making sure that they're reasonable for them. But we'll be working with them to revise these because we want to keep the momentum and the focus on paid employment. And then finally, we will continue to provide field-based, employment-focused technical assistance. And we will put more emphasis in this last year of services on working with and expanding networks with employers. In closing, I'd like to make a couple of remarks regarding our technical assistance. We have worked hand in glove with the evaluation team, and as a result of that, our technical assistance has been informed and targeted. Secondly, our technical assistance has gone beyond how-to workshops. We've actually expanded our role to help our sites with organizational development and change. And then finally, I think it's fair to say that our staff gained the trust and respect from the site staff early on in the project, and this has allowed us to become true partners in the process and identify the best solutions and strategies to achieve the outcomes of this project, and that being moving youth with disabilities into paying jobs. And I'm going to turn it back to Bonnie.
Thank you very much. We have now reached the question and answer period. So if you have a question and you're accessing this webinar remotely, you can send a message via the webinar message tool. There should be a field in which you can type your message in the window in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. We'll start with questions from the live audience. We do have a mic runner, Claire, who's going to be helping you to obtain a mic. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, and she'll bring the mic to you. Are there any questions?
Yes, thank you. My name is Emily Acklemuthi. I'm from ICF International. I wanted to find out about the use of individual development accounts within those sites.
All right. Sure, that would be great. Is there someone in the room from Miami that might want to answer that question? Because the Miami site has done a really good job of implementing the IDAs.
We'll have Marcela Vieira talk about the use of the individual development accounts in their site because they've been very successful.
Hi, my name is Marcela Vieira from Miami. Yes, we do have, a partnership with a company called, it's a nonprofit organization, Partners with Self-Employment, and they do provide accounts, like for the participants to save money. And what they do is that every dollar that they put in the savings account, they match with $2. The items are actually for open your own business or to buy a house. And when we started the program, we have items that were actually for buying a car. Unfortunately, with that particular company, they closed the funding, so we were unable to work with them anymore. But we do have some participants that were able to open accounts with them. The same thing, it was $1 every dollar that they saved, they matched with $2. so they were able to actually buy their own cars. And that we have about 3 participants that were able to do that. Of course, we placed them into a job. They were saving money into that account, and after a year, they were able to buy the car. Right now, we have about, I will say, I don't have the numbers here, but about maybe 30 participants that are doing, that they are participating in the classes, because they have to do classes, which is a requirement, financial literacy classes. And I'm sorry, I didn't prepare anything, Kelly. So they have to do those classes, and that is actually what we do. Our benefit specialists, what they do is that we have CDs, and that we provide those CDs, English and Spanish on Creole, with the financial literacy training. They have to finish each module, which they need to pass the test. After the 5 modules, they will be able to actually match their funds. And that what we do also, we do customize kind of like services. We accommodate, and they can do it on their own pace, but we also provide services in case if they need to do it in our offices. And we have about 30 participants that they are doing those trainings, and we have like maybe, I will say maybe 5 that they want to buy their own houses, but everyone, they will like to open their own business.
Great. Thank you, Marcella. Use the mic to ask your questions because the people on the webinar can't hear you otherwise. No problem.
Sorry, my quick follow-up question was how do you deal with the asset tax with SSI?
That would be maybe one of my benefits specialists will be able to answer that. But so far, they do have a limit of, for the amount that they need to put in that account. As far as I know, the limit is $1,000, and they will match, of course, the $2 every dollar. So, but it's not interfere with the Social Security benefits, and they were able to get their own cars and everything.
Right, and the asset test, anything that is in an IDA account, the asset test for SSI is not applicable to that.
Yes, correct, yes.
All right, are there other questions? That's Joyanne Cobb.
With Social Security. Just to add to that, we had 2 other sites that were non-random assignment sites that also use IDAs. One in California, we haven't talked about it here, but I just wanted to point out that the IDAs were used in other locations. In Mississippi, there were about 26 IDAs open there that were very successful. And then in California, there was one, and that individual ended up buying a home. So.
Thank you. Are there other questions in the back?
My name's Alan Jensen from George Washington University and manager of the DC Medicaid Infrastructure Grant. One of the things I assume you're looking at is the sustainability of this kind of a project. Have you found where the current Medicaid waiver services, other kinds of services in the workforce area, can they be a way to continue this kind of a project, or are there barriers within those programs to provide the kind of services that you provide here?
Yeah, that's been a big part of the PA, even as we head down the road here, because the YTD has offered very intensive, comprehensive services all through the program. Medicaid waiver is an excellent, at least in our state, the Title 19 waiver in West Virginia is an excellent opportunity, particularly people with significant disabilities, that offers very good support. However, at least in our state, there's an extreme waiting list for people with Medicaid waiver. Our DRS is structurally not capable of supporting such a. So we have become a CRP program in the interim. We've also become an employment network. We're looking at Medicaid waiver. Workforce WIA money is drying up as we speak. Maybe zero it out as we speak, who knows. But, yeah, it's a very real issue. I know the other programs, I don't know if Larry or Kathy would like to speak to that, but it's a big part of our transition and end game with the YTD program, because it's been a huge influx of grant money, for lack of a better term, and we want to be able to keep something going in some form or another. But those are a few things that we're looking at.
Larry Abramson, Vocational Director at St. Luke's House. We've used the YTD program to help enhance our relationship with the local voc rehab program and enhance our partnership so that we believe we'll be able to produce more outcomes and generate shared planning in a better way. We're also looking at using our mental health carve-out in Maryland to serve more clients, young adults between the age of 18 to 24 in the future. Overall, we're never going to be able to match the level of funding and services that we've been able to provide in YTD, and we hope this project will demonstrate that it's a good national policy to serve youth with significant disabilities with SSI and both at risk with SSI prior to the time they end up in a state institution, in jail, or homeless. And that was Larry Abramson, Director of the YTD project in Montgomery County, Maryland.
Let's take some questions from the webinar.
All right, we have a couple of great questions from the webinar. This first one comes from Linda Longaleo from Massachusetts. She notes that the data underscores the importance of job development services. Would the panelists agree, and does SSA have any additional plans to further strengthen the job development aspect of programs that it funds?
Well, we on the evaluation and TA side certainly agree with that statement that job development is critical to achieving positive employment outcomes. And I think it's been a challenge for our technical assistants to get the project staff comfortable with going out and making contacts with employers and promoting the employment of the YTD youth to them. That has been a big challenge, but it's absolutely critical. Job development. Would someone from SSA like to respond to the second half of the question? Well, I suspect SSA will be looking at the results from our evaluations to determine how to move forward on the job development front.
All right. The next question here comes from Henry Arias from Mathematica. 1 year seems like a short period of time to detect program impacts on paid employment. Based on the speaker's experiences, how long should participants be in the program for these impacts to be visible?
1 year is a short time, and that's why in our presentation today, our REACH presentation, we really presented the employment findings as service outcomes. Did the youth receive a paid employment experience during the year following random assignment? So we tend to view these first year results with respect to employment as, did they get this aspect of this key element of YTD services? Now, so that's our perspective on the 1 year findings with respect to employment. We will be conducting a 3-year follow-up survey, and by that time we would expect that any employment impacts that we might observe or find would be true longer-term impacts on employment and not just an indication of the receipt of services. I might add that another aspect of the evaluation, which is actually being conducted by Jeff Hemmeter at SSA, entails using SSA administrative data on earnings to track the earnings and employment outcomes of our treatment and control group youth over time. And Jeff will be producing impacts on those outcome measures 1, 2, 3, perhaps even 4 or 5 year intervals.
I can't speak for the other YTD programs, but we're, through the last year of our program, have aggressively looked backwards at people that were inactive youth that were earlier randomly assignees that maybe dropped off or we lost track of because life changes and people lose interest early but may come back. I think and I would hope that would add to the impact of the study ultimately for people that, so as a program we're looking forward but also looking backwards in some ways at inactive or disengaged youth. And I think most other programs might be doing that.
Yes.
Curtis Richards with the Institute for Educational Leadership and the National Collaborative on Workforce and Disability for Youth. I have 3 questions. One of them, Taylor, if you could maybe say a little more about the impact. You mentioned the culture of Social Security in West Virginia, and maybe you could say a little more about how this project has helped impact it. And then secondly, both of them, Arif, for you, on your table, this shows it's really nice to be able to see sort of the randomized differences, from the treatment and the impact groups. But there are a couple of things here that really stand out for me. One of them is that we kind of rolled up job shadowing and internships. Those are very, very different. And I'm wondering if you can break those out, both job shadowing, internships, and site visits. I think we saw a lot of site visit activity going on here in West Virginia. And then the other thing, Arif, would be in the CUNY project, there are a couple of big numbers in the impact. I wonder if you have any sense of why some of those are bigger than they are in the other 2 projects.
Yes, I did mention early on that in West Virginia, and not just totally unique of there, but I do believe there is an intrinsic cultural dependency in the state for beneficiaries. It's no secret that we have a very high distinct number of people on SSI and just a kind of a welfare state of mind, you might say. So there is, but the impact has been positive. I think that because the Mathematica during the interview process, being approach to families being a research project, the idea of going to work, the idea that it's very hands-on as a program, meeting with the families, it's the old, if you get the hearts and the minds involved with the families, that work is good. That's not to say we've had obstacles along the way. There are huge barriers. There's the old story sometimes says that, my work is the crazy check that comes in the mail. You hear those sort of things, and as negative as they may sound, it does occur, but if you can, the impact and culturally what we see is somebody's working and the buddy's working and the boy down the road or the daughter down the road is working, the families see that, and it really spills over to social positive. So there is an impact. I hope that the study ultimately will show that it is a positive, but it is real. It is real, and it's just not West Virginia.
I would just respond to the second part of the question that Kirsten asked. Regarding the job shadowing and sort of lumping together job shadowing with internships and apprenticeships, it was primarily driven by the way we asked that question in the questionnaire in the 12-month follow-up survey, so they were lumped together, so it's kind of a data limitation. Because of the way the question was designed, it would be hard for us to separate it out. But I understand that they're different activities altogether. Regarding the CUNY project having larger impact than the other 2 projects, I think we can correlate that to some extent with the intensity of services that youth received in the CUNY project. As you remember, both in the employment services side and in the non-employment services side, we showed the hours of services received by CUNY participants, and they were substantially higher compared to the other projects. The higher hours of services received by CUNY participants was driven by, I think, at least a couple of factors. One is the CUNY project was successful in keeping the youth engaged, both having the youth participate in the workshops that they had and also through their effort to keep the families engaged with the project activities. So that helped youth to be integrated with project activities. So they ended up receiving larger amount of service, and probably that's translating into the bigger impact that we're seeing.
I could just elaborate a little bit on the CUNY project. It was a workshop-based intervention. There were Saturday morning workshops. Also, among all the projects, I would say that CUNY went the furthest with respect to encouraging family involvement, and the families in the Bronx were very much involved in this project. They attended most of the workshops, and I think that helped the youth stay engaged, and because the youth stay engaged, they receive more hours of services, and because they receive more hours of services, they have more positive employment results.
There's somebody in the front who's had their hand up for a while.
Thank you. My name is Angel Miles. I'm a PhD student at the University of Maryland, and I have a few questions. One is about, just how does your program, YTD, address what some have mentioned, the culture of dependence on Social Security and other social programs, because a lot of that has to do with anxieties from communities or fear about the thought that they will actually make less money if they work, and then they actually lose health care services that they would normally get. So some of the culture is actually, makes sense to them, right? So how are you able to address that fear in terms of, are the young people actually making more money at their jobs, or they're making minimum wage than they would make if they were on Social Security? And also, I think some of you have mentioned this, as far as, are you following them longitudinally? Because I think the real test is going to be what's going to happen after they no longer get Social Security and they're just dependent on their job. So that's my one question. My last question is also, the research in disability policy and rehabilitation suggests that there's disparities in terms of the types of services and the quality of services that women and minorities with disabilities can receive. And so I was wondering, do you have any data that actually breaks down retention rates in your program and the types of jobs that some of the underrepresented groups in the disability community tend to get?
Okay, I'm going to tackle the first one. The first question had to do with addressing the anxiety of people with disabilities and families where the person is on SSI and what's going to happen when they return to work. Part of the uniqueness of the YTD project is the presence of particular waivers. They are waivers of traditional SSA rules that relate to receipt of SSI benefits and work. One of those Tom mentioned earlier is a benefit offset of 3 for 4. So, 1 for 4. So under current rules for the SSI program, an individual will lose $1 of benefits for every $2 they earn. Well, under the YTD project, that ratio is $1 of loss of benefits for every $4 earned. And there are a number of other work incentives that are enhanced under the YTD program. And one of the biggest components of the program is benefits counseling, not only about the existing work incentives, but also about the YTD waivers. So that's one way in which those issues are addressed. And of course, if you retain your SSI, then you also retain your Medicaid coverage. So those are some of the ways in which that anxiety is addressed. Another way that I know some projects have used is to engage youth who've been successful and have them do outreach to youth who are still considering employment. And I think the third component would be lots of family outreach and family counseling. So that was your first question. Your second question was, oh, that's right. Reef, I'll let you or Tom talk to that one.
Yes, we do. We are going to follow them longitudinally, so we'll be able to track their outcomes over time and see how things change for them. Particularly, as you emphasized, their well-being in terms of the actual income that they end up with as they move from, SSA benefits to a more earnings-reliant lifestyle.
And the third one was about disparities in terms of African Americans or other racial and ethnic groups and women. Will we be able to dissect the results and show differences between those groups?
We'll be able to do some dissection, but I think our sample sizes were selected to give us what we believe would be adequate power to detect the types of impacts we might expect for entire samples. That means that once we go slicing and dicing our sample, we lose statistical power. I suspect that with respect to minority groups, they will not be represented in our sample in large enough numbers to allow us to reliably estimate impacts on them. Now, with respect to male-female differences, there's more potential there. Yes, it did. This is Leola Bush from SSA. Leola was asking, could we look at individual sites and get at this issue regarding different impacts on minorities? There's some potential there. However, when we look at one site, perhaps CUNY, where it is serving a large proportion of minorities and we are seeing bigger impacts, it would be hard, because there were unique things about the CUNY site, in addition to serving a high proportion of minorities. I mentioned them, family involvement, a workshop approach. It would be hard to separate those things out. Now, it is possible, our plans under our contract with SSA entail us doing site-specific analysis, so all of our impact estimates will be site-specific. At some point, maybe in a follow-up contract, maybe when a graduate student at the University of Maryland gets the data, that someone will do a PhD thesis combining the data across the sites. We then have a sample of 5,000 as opposed to 880 in each site. And maybe at that point, estimates could be made of impacts on specific minority groups. We have no specific plans to do that under our current contract.
So in other words, give Tom a call when you're thinking about dissertation topics and give us a call when you're completed. Okay, do we have other questions through the webinar? Yes? Okay, we'll take one more from the webinar and a couple more from here.
We had a couple of questions about the use of waivers. I'm going to address them together. How influential are the money waivers in promoting continued deployment in other areas of the country? And are the types of waivers that you described, specifically the EIE, available outside of YTD in other areas of the country?
The 5 waivers that we've described are available only to YTD participants. Let's see, the first aspect of the question was
how influential the money waivers have been in promoting continued employment in other areas of the country.
Well, we can only address their influence in the YTD sites because the EIE waiver is only available in the YTD sites. Maybe one way to get at this is to think about the EIE take-up rate in the three early sites. And the EIE and SEIE are somewhat intermingled, but my recollection is it's on the order of 20 to 25%.
That's right, Tom. I would just add that for all of these waivers, they are actually enhancements over existing SSA program rules. So again, with the example of the EIE, the existing programs rules suggest that $1 benefit would be deducted for every $2 of earnings. Whereas in the enhanced rule, or the YTD waivers, $1 would be deducted for every $4 of earnings. So in that way, the work incentive itself is available to all SSA program beneficiaries, disability program beneficiaries, but for YTD, we have an enhanced work incentive.
All right. We'll take a couple of final questions here. I'm told it's 1:30, so are there any final questions in the back?
Hi, this is Cheryl Bates Harris from the National Disability Rights Network. I don't know if this is a question so much as an observation that goes back to this young lady's statement about the disparate impact. It strikes me rather odd that in the CUNY site that the greatest work incentive was the use of the continuing 301 benefits, which basically means that during the redetermination process, those individuals were no longer found eligible for benefits. And I'm wondering what's going on in the Bronx that's the greatest work incentive versus some of the other sites.
I believe that the rate of negative redeterminations following a CDR is about 1/3. Those are the folks who would be using the Section 301 waiver. I don't think I'm surprised at the rate of use of the Section 301 waiver, given that rate of negative redeterminations. Would someone from SSA like to handle this?
Jeff Hammer from SSA. The 301 waiver really isn't a work incentive. It just extends eligibility regardless of whether or not they work. It's based on their disability and defining from the continuing disability review or an agency redetermination. So, and I think the ages of who was in the CUNY site and who was in the other sites also has something to play with why we saw that being used more in the CUNY site.
I guess what I was asking is, would that mean that the level of the severity of the disability would have been less than, say, the disability in some of the other programs? That's kind of...
It means that their disability, they were found no longer to be disabled under SSA's criteria. And I don't really know the specific differences between 504 versus SSA.
There's one other dimension to this CUNY-related issue I'd like to mention, and it has to do with the ages of the participants in the three sites. We've reviewed them. The CUNY project really targeted youth ages roughly 15 through 17, and so a number of them became age 18 over the course of the evaluation and therefore went through the CDR process and had the opportunity to use the waiver, whereas most of the other projects are going after youth ages 14 through 25 who either we don't observe going through the CDR process or who went possibly have already gone through it successfully. So I think some of this higher use of the CDR waiver at CUNY is sort of technically related to the ages of the youth served in the various sites.
Well, it is now a little after 1:30, so I'd like to thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
In closing, I'd like to just recognize Dave Stapleton, who's the director of our Center for Studying Disability Policy, but I'm not going to give him a chance to say anything. You can just raise his hand. Before you leave, we'd like to remind you of our next, which will be our 14th Policy Forum on April 21st, on actually another SSA demonstration, the Accelerated Benefits Demonstration, which tests whether earlier access to health care for new SSDI beneficiaries who lack health care coverage will lead to improved health and increased employment. So we look forward to seeing you at that forum. Thank you very much, and have a good day. Bye-bye.